They can't be. Part of it is a liability issue, but whether it's an operator or a controller or an organic mental component, it doesn't matter. We're not at the point yet where we trust the machines 100% of the time to do everything themselves. There is no 100% automated factory. There's always at least one guy who's got a mop who's there to make sure the machines don't go crazy. All right. Given you're a super hacker, you are almost ready to star in a movie. You're Gregory Evans. You busted the system, you pwned them good. Here's the thing, stuff breaks. No, seriously, entropy, it happens. Stuff breaks all the time. It breaks so often that they pre-calculate what will happen when it breaks. They're called single contingency errors, they're called double contingency errors. They've done all of the math. They plan for it to happen. 2 simultaneous failures in 2 completely different parts of the system, they know how to cope with that. They know how to shut the process down safely. So if you're making a batch of plastic, it doesn't solidify in the reactant vessel, which means you have to throw the reactant vessel out. They know how to deal with the fact that chunks of the power grid go off all the time. Small parts of cities do, because squirrels and raccoons are awesome, especially when they've been fried. They know how to deal with the fact that problems happen because they happen all the time. Pipelines do this. In this case, this is what, seriously, that's an awful picture. In this case, it's a propane facility blowing up, where they would transfer propane from one container to another. Those things go boom. Lines fall down. Number 1 sport anywhere within driving distance of high tension lines is taking your rifle and shooting the insulators out. Do you know how they replace one of those insulators? I mean, we got this picture of these guys walking around up there, but the more common way to do it is hanging out of a helicopter, wearing a Faraday cage, grounding the entire helicopter to the high voltage line, and fixing it in the air. That's done across North America thousands of times a day. Pipelines break. Sorry, they break a lot, actually. They break badly. They break on land, they break underwater, and they get fixed. Sometimes it takes 3 months, but they get fixed. 999 times out of 100, well, you know. What? Oh, yeah. I'm not good at math. Maybe more like 99,999 out of 100,000. You don't feel it at all. Can anybody remember the last time that they lost water pressure in a municipality? 1, 2, 3. Wow. Was it during a blackout? That's kind of blackout a little bit, isn't it? They don't just stop. I mean, you're accustomed to the squirrel that takes out the power in your neighborhood, right? Especially if you have overhead lines like we do. We draw a little chalk outline around the dead squirrel lying on the ground because it happens frequently enough that we get in the habit. But generally speaking, you don't notice. I mean, it's not like your cozy little house is any less cozy. It's not like anyone's wandering the streets looking for flesh to eat. It's that you never noticed because these bad things that everybody talks about that show up in the newspaper, just they don't happen. Not really. Somebody had to. All right, everybody knows about the Aurora demonstration? Okay, so some smart guys from INL, all of whom are named Jason, by the way. Little known fact about INL and anything to do with SCADA. They proved that you can do bad things to equipment. In this case, they had a generator running, they accessed it, and they drove it over speed. Overspeed generators go bang. Most electric generators run at about 3,600 RPM. If you run them a little bit faster than that, you're still within the engineering spec for the bearings and for the shaft. If you run them faster than that, they tend to blow up. It was a modest effort. It wasn't a crazy amount of work. It was a very well-known attack surface. There are lots of these generator in a box kind of systems out there. You drive around, most government buildings have a beige box out back that says Kohler or something on it, and it's generated in a box. Trying to suggest that your garden variety DEFCON hacker could do this in an afternoon is crap, frankly, and that's what the media made it out to be. You have to know which control points in the system, by reading the manual, attach to which parts of the protocol, and you have to be able to decompress the protocol. Smart meters, smart meters, smart meters, smart meters. Everybody wants to talk about smart meters. Smart meters aren't SCADA. Smart meters aren't even process control. Smart meters are a financial tool. They're billing. Smart meters take care of making sure that it's easier to do the meter maid kind of job. She doesn't have to walk around and circle the little clocks to make sure that you got the right meter reading. It's about doing easy connections and disconnections. If you live in a university town where people are cycling through fairly frequently, it means you don't have to roll a truck to do the day before meter reading and the day after meter reading when somebody moves in, moves out. They're about providing, well, this is what the book says anyways. They're about providing for demand-side load management. So they can provide an economic incentive or economic disincentive to say to me, it's much better for you to do your laundry at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night than it is for you to do your laundry on Saturday afternoon when you're actually around to do your laundry. That's for providing that kind of tool. There's something that is like a smart meter but isn't a smart meter. And people talk about them in this commingled kind of way. And it goes back to that specificity of language thing. You can arrange with your power company to get a special kind of thermostat that goes on your wall that can cycle your air conditioner on and off at different times. This is actually a fairly neat tool because it helps with the double peak problem. Power is utilized starting from the middle of the night. There's a peak right in the morning when people are getting ready to go to work. It drops down during the day when people are all doing their stuff. It peaks up again when people get home and turn on their ovens to 450 to make that awesome frozen pizza. And then it drops down again over the course of the evening. And the marginal cost of providing power for those peaks is really expensive. So instead of being 5 or 6 cents a kilowatt hour, it's more like $1 a kilowatt hour. So trimming the tops off of those peaks, rounding them in this very analog kind of way, is really excellent. So they provided the system where it says, we'll turn off your air conditioner for 10 minutes out of the hour so that we can balance how much load is being used in different parts of the control area. And that's all terrific. Those systems all run on flex paging. They don't run on any kind of regular thing. So I'm giving you all the big hints here. If you go back to 1997 and look at the Loft site and pick up one of their POCSAG decoders, you can do serious hacking of demand management for power grids today. It's not exactly a new technology. Advance, please. It hates going to the slide and I don't know why. There we go. Oh, it's busy doing the build for the next crazy slide. So, Stuxnet. Anybody heard about that? 3 people. Anybody hear about the big crazy SCADA vulnerability last week, 2 weeks ago? It was in every flipping newspaper there is. Everybody had an opinion about it. Everybody wanted you to know that they knew more about this than anyone else. The fundamental vulnerability is really simple. There's a Microsoft bug. No, really, there's a bug in Microsoft software. Such that when you view in Windows Explorer a directory that contains an LNK file, which is your standard shortcut link, it actually executes code attached to that LNK file just by virtue of viewing it. You haven't even had to click on it yet, you just view it. And some bad people, nefarious people, bad actors, nation states, who the crap knows, decided they were going to attach a stub to this code that looked for the presence of a piece of industrial automation software manufactured by Siemens. This industrial automation software is used in process control. It's not SCADA, despite what all these headlines say. And this industrial software uses a standard database backend. It's not quite an open source project. It doesn't put ID3 tags in the database backend. But they stole the process map. Remember I was telling you the hard part isn't the data, it's the process map? They stole the process map and they tried to upload it to a web server that fortunately doesn't exist. It was probably a proof of concept. The most interesting part about it is that it gets around by moving from USB drive to USB drive. So remember all those floppies we used to be worried about getting viruses from? you have scanning set up on demand for your USBs? Should you really be jamming random USB drives into control systems computers? You wonder whether it was a control system vendor that carried the initial infection in. Because they would do that kind of thing. Because, of course, they're experts. I'm not. We're not. You're not. The real issue at the end of this was that it was suggested that you not remove the software, that you not remove this malware, because it would endanger the operation of the system. And this isn't good for anybody. Having the vendor say, wait until we've got a tool, don't remove it. We don't know exactly what it does because nobody's done a really good breakdown of it. The breakdown didn't happen for almost 2 weeks. Just sort of accept that it's there. And disclosure is always an interesting kind of problem. Everybody knows about full disclosure and responsible disclosure and coordinated vulnerability disclosure. There's also vendor disclosure, which nobody talks about enough, and that's that vendors are screwing this up royally because they're still letting their marketing departments and their legal departments be involved. I would encourage you to try and read that red circled piece. Those at the back, I'll read it out loud in a minute. The nice folks in Siemens Marketing and Legal took it a little too far. They said the user login and the password for WinCCC are freely definable and there's nothing to do with access to the internal database. The internal system authentication from the program to the database is based on predefined access data. I want everybody to swallow the term predefined access data and tell me how that's different from the word password. Specificity is important in our business. If you mean password, you say password, bastards. And they say you cannot change that because it's been hard-coded throughout the application. So if you change it on the database and you change it all the places you can find it in the application is such crappy soup that you can't get it changed in all the places that you need to change it, so you break shit. Yeah. You're all perfectly smart, every single one of you. Roughly 50% of you had a shower today. Go team. You've just got to pay attention and focus in a way that legal departments, marketing departments, and media aren't. And you've got to do something. Since you've solved all of your organization's problems, you've reviewed all of your logs, you know what every firewall rule is for. Starting to sound like we all suck at our jobs, doesn't it? You've got to the point where you've amassed all of the certifications necessary to make the HR department believe you know what you're doing. You've got time. You've had your feet up on that desk for a while. There's a lot of warring factions involved in control systems, whether it's little control systems or big control systems. There's the business function versus the asset owners. There's the traditional IT departments and the control system shadow IT departments. Everybody's got a foot in the game, and they're worried that you're trying to take their turf. I mean, most control systems end up installed in places that, for better or worse, have a bit of a union mentality, and you're taking their turf. You can get past this. You just need to suck it up. You're not an expert. You're sure as hell not an expert in what they're an expert in. Suck it the heck up. Buy some people some coffee. Make some friends. Because it's time to learn. You can't walk in after having been, even to a day like today where Nikita joyfully exclaimed, "It's the SCADA track at DEFCON." Even if you spend the entire day in this room, you're still not an expert. You don't know what it is that your business does for real. Unless you spent days in operations. You've sat in control rooms. You've watched the machines. You've lived through cleaning up ed paste. You've done all of these things. Even though it feels disingenuous. I mean, it feels stupid to stand in front of somebody and say, "Sir, please teach me, please." But you've got to be the student first. After you've learned as much as you possibly can, then you're in a reasonable position to go back to them and say, "Based on what you've taught me, I think this might be